Bem, meus amigos, um dia muito especial aqui para o canal Cine Bobagens e Videotagens. Estive hoje aqui acompanhando a coletiva de imprensa do ator Hugh Jackman, que veio lançar Logan aqui na cidade de São Paulo. A seguir vocês vão ficar com o bate-papo na íntegra. Ele respondeu muito solicitamente a pergunta de todos os jornalistas que estiveram aqui na cidade de São Paulo. Foi um evento muito bacana, na verdade. O filme vai ter review muito em breve aqui também. Irei estar trazendo para vocês a crítica, a análise, seja lá como vocês quiserem chamar. E só um toque, pessoal, as perguntas aqui na coletiva, elas foram feitas em português e respondidas em inglês. Quem tiver dificuldade com a língua, é facinho. Clica no link que eu vou deixar aqui na descrição. Tem um tutorial meu lá no outro canal no Quatro Notícias, ensinando vocês passo a passo como colocar a legenda no vídeo do YouTube. Você deve estar se perguntando, então, mas será que dá muito trabalho e tal? Não, é rapidinho. É 2 minutos para quem tem dúvida. Sempre quando eu vou estar colocando um vídeo aqui em outra língua, eu deixo essa dica para vocês acompanharem esse meu tutorial que está lá. Bem facinho, ok? Então a seguir, fiquem aí com Hugh Jackman. E em breve não percam o review aqui no canal também a respeito de Logan.
Antes de mais nada, eu gostaria de agradecer sua presença aqui, por trazer o Logan para o Brasil, para que nós possamos ter essa honra de assistir, estarmos entre os primeiros países a receber o filme e termos a oportunidade de conversar com você. Para começar, eu queria voltar um pouquinho no tempo. São 17 anos vivendo o Wolverine já. Se você pensar o tempo que você recebeu a proposta, o momento que você foi procurado pela primeira vez com esse projeto, o que você se lembra dessa época? Como você se lembra dessa época? Se você imaginou que você seria o Wolverine tanto tempo?
Thank you. Obrigado for having us here in Brazil. It has been a long time since I've been here, and yet Brazil has been a great supporter of Wolverine and X-Men, so it was very important to me and my team, and thank you to Patricia and the team of Fox, but we really wanted to come here to Brazil to say thank you and to show you this film. Sorry, to your question there, when I first heard about this, and I did an audition, they were doing a worldwide search for all the characters, I believe. I had never heard of X-Men. There was a rock band in Sydney called the Uncanny X-Men. And I was like, they want me to play Brian Mannix, the lead singer of it. I was like, what are they in Hollywood doing making a movie with this Sydney band? I learned the 3 pages. I ran those pages with my wife, who's an actress. She's reading Wolverine senses danger, his nostrils flare and snicked. S-N-I-K-T, claws come out of his hands. She's like, dude, this is ridiculous, you can't do this. You're at the Royal National Theatre, you know, you're being directed by Sir Trevor Nunn, you can't have claws coming out of your hands. I said, I'll have a go, you know, how bad can it be? Here we are, 17 years later. That's the only time my wife has ever been wrong, by the way. And don't tell her I said that, please. But I had no idea. When we made the film, there was no comic book genre. I think you could argue that maybe X-Men was the beginning of comic book movies. Kevin Feige, who now runs Marvel Studios, was the assistant to the producer. My first night in Toronto, Kevin took me out for dinner, and he was a lovely guy. It was just this, so it was all very, very, very new. No one understood. Nobody knew how big it would be, and I was the last person who thought it would be 17 years.
Nesses 17 anos, obviamente, você teve tempo para se acostumar com o personagem, para estudar o Wolverine. E o que você acha que nessas quase 2 décadas você extraiu do Wolverine, e o que Logan consegue extrair do Wolverine que vocês não tinham conseguido até então?
That's a good question. I knew from the beginning, even though I'd never heard of it, I was like, this is an unusual comic book character. For me, he was always defined by his humanity more than his superhero abilities. Even if you look at his abilities, on paper, he's probably not the most formidable. I mean, you pretty much got to be within standing distance of him for him to do anything to you. And yet he's sort of the most feared. He's the one person you don't want to annoy. He's the one person you want on your team. But he always seemed to me to have hidden depths that I didn't know existed in comic books or in the comic book world. And the longer and more I've got into it, the more I've been intrigued by that. He's got a very hard shell, smoking cigars, quipping. Everything seems to roll off his back, but obviously within there's this weight of his history, of the fact he's someone that everyone he has ever known or loved has died. And it wasn't until this movie where I felt we really got to the heart of this great, great character. I love Wolverine. People say, are you going to miss him? And I'm like, I can't miss him because he's always there with me. It doesn't feel to me like he's gone. I watch this movie and I look at the screen and it makes me emotional how much I have grown playing him and how much that character has taught me. And I will be honest with you though that I have felt for 15 years that there was a deeper story to tell about this character. There was something within me, and please don't misinterpret this, that I have anything bad to say about any of the X-Men movies, because I don't. I'm very proud of them and I love them, but I just felt there was something more there. And when I spoke with Fox, with Emma Watson, Steve Asbell, I said, I want to tell this story about a man. I don't want it to be called Wolverine. I want it to be called Logan, because that is an amazing story. And I think it's relevant to today. And they said, go for it. So this, for me, is the definitive story about this character.
Bom, a gente vai abrir agora para as perguntas. Primeira pergunta aqui. Alguém com...
Very organized. Cards, simple one. That's good. Number one. I feel like I'm at an auction. Be high, please be high.
Bom dia, meu nome é Fábio, eu sou do Corpo Popular. Tem se falado muito que esse é o filme mais violento, né, dos X-Men, da franquia, mas mais do que ter violência, o filme fala muito sobre as consequências da violência. E aí eu queria que você comentasse um pouco quão importante é fazer um filme mostrando essas consequências da violência num mundo que a gente vive hoje, extremamente intolerante, quase selvagem. Então, qual a importância do filme nesse sentido também no contexto que a gente vive hoje?
Very important. This is an adult film. There are kids in it, but it's not a film for kids. It is a story which has a lot of violence in it, and we didn't. Those decisions weren't done lightly. I don't think you can understand Logan unless you feel and understand the violence and what it does to him, what it does to others. This is a very different movie where it's not a movie where buildings fall on people and then they happen to rush it off and walk away. No. When people die, they die. When you commit violence, that sticks with you. And there's a very small bit in the movie where the young girl is talking about her dreams and how people hurt her. She says, I've hurt people too, and my character says, you're going to have to learn to live with that. And she says, they were bad people, and Logan says, all the same. And we reference shame in the movie, this idea that your choices in life do stick. There is a consequence. And it is deliberately violent, because I don't think you can fully understand the things we love about Logan, his berserker rage, or his toughness, or that hard shell, unless you understand that this is a man who has been a weapon, an ultimate force of destruction. He was built to destroy. And what is the weight of that? And at the beginning of this film, as he is not well and in the winter of his life, shall we say, you feel the weight of it. And I think in the end, hopefully, it's unsettling.
Ok, segunda pergunta. Quem está com os
I believe you. It's okay.
Olá, meu nome é Rogério Montanari, sou do site Cinema com Rapadura. Rapadura é um doce do Nordeste do Brasil, que é muito duro, mas ele é muito, muito doce. Mais ou menos que nem o Wolverine.
Sweet enough. Okay, that's how I'm going to describe Logan from now on. Maybe a little harder than sweet, but still hard and sweet. Okay.
Muito, muito duro. Eu te trouxe uma rapadura de presente, juntamente com um desenho que minha filha de 7 anos mandou especialmente para você. Só que eu não fui autorizado a te entregar, então eu vou deixar com a assessora. Pode ser?
Yeah, no. No, bring it to me.
You share all of this.
Vamos lá, terceira pergunta, por favor. Tá bom.
Hang on, it wasn't a question, just a gift.
You're much sweeter than that. That's very sweet. You can answer the question. Yeah. I'm an actor. You feed me. You can ask questions all day. That's fine.
É a Nina com o Wolverine.
Nina Wolverine and the blue and yellow spandex. Yeah.
Ela prefere desenhar com o capacete, com a máscara.
Don't show her a picture of me. She'll be very disillusioned. I'll read that letter. There we go. Yes.
A pergunta é a seguinte: agora que o filme está pronto, qual é o sentimento que você está no momento? Está aliviado, porque agora você vai poder comer pão à vontade, sem culpa? ou você está triste por estar deixando esse personagem que fez parte de uma boa parte da sua vida?
To use your website, it's sweet. It's sweet and it is satisfying. I was very nervous up until maybe last night when I saw the film in Berlin for the first time with an audience. From the moment I said I was going to do it, it was very clear the type of movie I wanted to make. Jim Mangold and when I say I have to mention Jim. And there was a band of about 6 or 7 people, but particularly Jim Mangold. This film wouldn't be possible, it's his film really. But we were very hard on each other about the type of film we wanted to make. We didn't want to be a comic book movie, we wanted to be a film. We wanted to be a film about a man, hopefully a great film, and for me one that I would always look back to as the definitive. When Nina grows up, and she's old enough, and if I meet her, and she says, which one of those movies should I see, Mr. Jackman? I'm going to say, watch Logan. And I have a great sense of satisfaction. There is a lot of emotion, obviously, for me, mainly because I'm with people that I've worked with for 17 years. There's relief that we've done it, because I knew this was the last one. There was no second chance. I'm very proud of the last 17 years, but if you imagine I was a soccer player playing for Brazil, and I told you this is my last World Cup, and we get to the final. If we lost, I would still be proud, but winning is so much better, right? Particularly when you know it's your last. And when I saw the film, I felt deeply satisfied and relieved. And the sadness I don't feel, not yet anyway. If I can't get employed in the next 12 months, maybe then I'll feel sad. But it's a difficult thing to explain. It will never leave me. I don't feel it leaves me. I don't feel I'm leaving the X-Men family. Those fans have come up to me every day of my life for 17 years, literally every day of my life. And I love them. And this movie is a love letter to them, as much as it's a movie for people who've never seen it, and a comic book movie at all. So I know I'm kind of never leaving. So, and it can't leave me, you know? Thank you for my...
Linha número 3.
Olá, boa tarde, Jackman. Eu sou a Cameron, do jornal Correio. Logan é um filme, é um road movie, que é dramático, tem um tom realista, fala de paternidade, família. Além de personagens que você encarnar mais uma vez, do que é que você se inspirou nessas referências que tem também? Até do termo extra, o Shane.
Thank you, great question. Yes, you understand it very well. For me, the first movie was Unforgiven, which, by the way, was the inspiration for the comic Old Man Logan. So people often say, "Oh, was this the comic Old Man Logan?" And I say, "Well, we have the same inspiration. There's no Hulk babies in this movie." But that movie had a huge impact on me when I was 19, I think, when I saw it. I was a Clint Eastwood fan. I never forget when that double-barrel shotgun comes up in the foreground. Hugh Jackman and all his cronies are standing at the bar. You know, Clint's had that drink. I cheered at the same time it devastated me. Here was a movie that made you think, questioned right and wrong, and made you understand family. Jim Mangold was the man who said to me, he came up with the idea of Laura and the X-23, the idea of Charles with dementia. He mentioned Little Miss Sunshine, the fact that these kind of superheroes, I kind of love that. They're in a car and, you know, their battery runs out, they need gas, they're hungry. You know, Charles like, I need to pee, you know, all the things we all struggle with on a road trip. I also was inspired by The Wrestler, Darren Aronofsky's movie. Something very poignant about that. The day-to-day struggle between our past, regret, and whatever dwindling hope there is for the future. And of course the movie Shane, which was also Jim Mangold's reference, which we not only were inspired by, but ends up in the movie as an allegory for this journey. Thank you for your question, it's great. And just one more thing on family. What I thought was so great about what Jim Mangold did is he said to me, the greatest fear for Logan is not an enemy. The greatest fear for him is intimacy. And as I have got older, I think that's actually probably true for almost everyone on the planet. Of course, we have family, we have friends, but intimacy can be construed in many different ways. And the idea of revealing who we truly are, our real hopes, our real desires, to the people we love, and even if they don't accept it, is one of the biggest steps we take as we grow older. Surrounding someone who's terrified of that intimacy, because everyone he's known or loved has died, has brought him pain, and surrounding him with family was a brilliant narrative choice, I think.
Eu tenho uma pergunta aqui das pessoas que estão assistindo ao vivo, do Eric Vieira, e ele pergunta qual é a sensação de agora viver o Wolverine que está cansado de tudo?
like to play him to...
Como você se sentiu interpretando um Wolverine cansado, um Wolverine que...
I felt tired. I did. I really went into a place making this movie that was deeply satisfying. There was physically tiring. I think he's emotionally tired. I think he feels very little hope of achieving peace of any kind. He's a good man at heart. I mean, that may be his weakness in terms of he was created as a weapon, but actually he has a conscience and he's loyal. He doesn't brag about it. He doesn't seem like a nice guy, but I was very touched in the story about how he treats Patrick Stewart's character, Charles Xavier, how he tries to keep from him anything that might hurt him. But in terms of playing him, this was the hardest film I've done. A road movie, if any of you guys have been on the set, is difficult. You're dragging 200 people around on the road, and we were in that car. I remember one day, they measured the temperature in that car at 138 degrees, which I think is probably around 53 degrees, and I was with an 11-year-old and Patrick Stewart, and we had sound, so we had to turn the air conditioning off and roll the windows up. Now you guys in Brazil know what it's like, 53 degrees. Everything about it was hard, but everything about it was sweet. Hard but sweet.
Muito. Eles mudaram completamente, eles quase não existiam e hoje são numerosos, são mais adultos, são mais complexos, muito mais populares. Então eu gostaria que você comentasse um pouco essa evolução do gênero, como alguém que viveu isso do lado de dentro, desde o início praticamente. E depois gostaria que você tentasse situar Logan nessa história, né? O que ele significa para os filmes de super-heróis hoje.
Great question. 17 years ago, Comic-Con, which you all probably know of, a fan event which happens in San Diego. I'm making this up, but I want to say there were maybe 50,000 people went to Comic-Con. Now it's 500,000. Every studio, every TV company all goes down there to court the fans. Internet was around, remember the old dial-up internet? But I don't think anyone really was marketing on the internet or really understood the size of the fan base for comic book movies. Even, if I remember right, Marvel Comics itself, the comic book chain was really not doing very well. So I think it was considered a relatively small part of the entertainment industry. It wasn't cool, there was no comic book genre. I remember friends in the business saying to me, make sure you book a job before this thing comes out because this thing's going to... and here we are 17 years later where, DC, Marvel, X-Men, you name it, there is a lot. And I think a huge jump happened with Chris Nolan. I think you have... let me go back further. I think Bryan Singer took some really bold choices. Early on. If you think back to the opening of X-Men 1, the very first scene in the concentration camp in World War II, that's not what people thought of as comic book movies. And he actually banned us as actors reading. He didn't want any comic books on the set because he said, we're playing humans. We are making a film about discrimination, how people fear the unknown, and that's, X-Men was really an allegory of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X back in the day. It had political things to say. Cut forward to Logan. My wildest dreams, what I hope, that we somehow can make people look at this genre in a revolutionary way, in the same way they did back in 2000 with X-Men 1, which surprised people. Look what happened with Deadpool. An amazing movie, right? I mean, obviously very, very different, but very subversive, very funny and unexpected, and felt authentic to that character. I think this movie is very, very authentic to this character. I really hope, and I pray that fans of Wolverine say, finally, that's the Wolverine movie we wanted to see. because they are great characters. You look at that comic book art, Chris Claremont, I mean, joke aside, what these guys did over those years, Len Wein, Stan Lee, created really interesting, nuanced, layered stories and characters that actually had something to say. And so as long as we keep that and keep surprising people, I don't see there's a limit. It won't be with me, but maybe someone in this room will play Wolverine, I don't know. Yes, I both. I'm Austin. Yes, Logan.
É a brasileira de São Paulo. Nesses 17 anos você não fez só o papel do Wolverine, né? Você fez outros grandes filmes, inclusive o musical Os Miseráveis. O que eu queria saber é o que você pretende fazer, como você pretende conduzir sua carreira a partir de agora? Filmes de baixo orçamento, ainda voltado para superproduções, ou se dedicar mais seu tempo à família e ao teatro?
Yes, 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 and yes. But it starts with my family, always first. Before I do anything, I have a pretty simple rule about marriage. I just ask, is this good or bad for my marriage? And if it's bad, I don't do it. If it's good, I do it, you know. And that includes work, obviously. So, I really learned something from doing this movie. I was more involved with this movie than ever before. From the beginning, at 4 a.m., and this is going to sound like I made it up, but on March 2nd, 2015, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with such a clear idea of what I wanted this movie to be, that I recorded something on my phone. Our movie comes out 2 years to the date after that, I recorded that. And what I'm most proud of is that that movie is 95% of what I was talking about in that voice memo. And it is I'm not a director, so I've never really, or a writer, so I've never really had that feeling of generating and seeing it right through to the finished product. But in a way, I feel I have that with this. Don't get me wrong, I didn't write this, I didn't direct it, Jim Mangold did. And this is his movie. But that's what I would like in the future. It could be big, it could be small. I want to do stuff I believe in, stuff that I would do anything for, and the kind of roles and projects where I'm so excited to literally give blood to. Because it's just so much sweeter in the end when that doesn't matter how hard it is, when you really, really believe in it. And I've always given everything I can, but I think I'm at a point now, maybe my age or where I'm at, where I feel I can choose a little bit that kind of material. I'm actually doing a movie musical right now. I couldn't be more opposite from this. It's called The Greatest Showman, about a man, P.T. Barnum, who is probably the most positive man you'll ever meet in history. And it is the polar opposite of this, and that took 7 years to make. I can't tell you how many, 7 years to get the green light, we're still making it. So, and credit again to Fox, who took a risk. So, that's the kind of stuff, really everything. But I'm very, very excited. I have no idea in a month's time when I finish shooting what is next, and that's thrilling.
E você mencionou numa resposta anterior o filme do Deadpool. A impressão que eu tive assim que acabou o Logan foi que as coisas agora devem ter mais uma guinada, que Deadpool deu uma guinada justamente por ser um filme de super-herói mais subversivo, e o Logan agora pegou talvez pela primeira vez um super-herói mainstream de verdade, que já era famoso no grande público, talvez um dos mais famosos super-heróis todos os tempos, e o colocou num filme que também tem doses de violência, muito mais pesado. Você, como parte integrante dessa evolução dos filmes de super-heróis, esses 17 anos de filmes de super-heróis, de consolidação do gênero, você gostaria de ver o que a partir de agora nesses filmes de super-herói?
I want to see the unexpected. I want to see movies that don't just excite visually, that don't just sort of make you laugh, but that move you. movies can be amazing, but unless they touch you within, they don't stay with you. Those movies we can all think back over our life. The ones that you remember today, could be comedies, could be horror, could be anything. The ones that move you in the end are the ones that stay with you. There's no limit. I mean, there's incredible filmmakers, writers, actors working in comic book movies, in all types of movies. I think, for me, and of course it's just my opinion, the reason this movie works is we did not think of it as a comic book movie. I don't want it to be defined by a genre. I don't want it to be defined by a rating, like an R rating. I wanted it to be defined as an experience of storytelling and of character.
Próxima pergunta. Boa tarde, meu nome é Bruno Faia, eu sou do jornal Leitura Dinâmica. O meu já deve estar devendo uns 400 mil, provavelmente no leilão, então vou ser bem rápido. Sobre os X-Men, a gente já tem uma história aí bem antiga e a própria gênese dos X-Men vem dos quadrinhos, vem das histórias, vem das ideias. O que o Logan, o filme Logan, deixa em termos de legado, em termos de história, especialmente em termos de roteiro? Afinal de contas, a gente conhece o Hugh Jackman, ator, a gente conhece diretores, a gente conhece todo esse trabalho, mas tem uma criação de texto. O que o Logan hoje deixa? Qual é o legado que ele participa como texto, como roteiro de cinema? E como ele pode estar devolvendo isso, de certa forma, para outros meios, como os quadrinhos, enfim. Obrigado.
I can really only talk of hope. I mean, our movie hasn't come out yet, so I'm not really sure ultimately what the legacy will be or where it will sit in history. But we really hope to make a great film that made people see beyond their perceptions of comic books, to make people connect as humans to the experience, not necessarily of being extraordinary, but the experience of being human or ordinary, really. I mean, in many ways, this is a meditation on aging, dying, what is life about, what is family, what is worth risking, what is connection. We live in a world now, and by the way, I suppose one of the things I knew we were on the right track was some of the stuff that was written into our movie, like border walls, etc., was written in a year before they were spoken about. And that's not me, that was James Mangold and Scott Frank. And I remember thinking, oh, you guys are onto something here. Because this movie is about the cost of connecting. It's messy, it's frustrating, it can be dangerous. And ultimately, it's a question that is being asked the world over: is it worth it? Should we do that? Should we invite our neighbours over for dinner, or should we just build a fence and wait for them over the fence? Movies, I think, should entertain. Movies should make you think. Movies should make you feel, not only about the world, but our own lives. And I hope, let me just speak personally. I've been involved in 9 comic book movies. I hope this is the one that's remembered as definitive of this character, which I truly believe is an iconic character that was not created by me. It was created many years before me, that I've hopefully helped to inhabit, and other actors will do so in the future. But hopefully that character will live on as one of the iconic characters of cinema. I mean, it sounds bold to say that, but that's what I do hope.
Olá, eu sou o Gustavo do Fico Palmeiras da SB. Eu ia pedir para você cantar como você fez na coletiva quando você veio a primeira vez, principalmente Old Man River, que você interpreta muito bem. Mas
What did I sing? I can't remember.
Não, Old Man River. Old Man River.
Old Man.
A minha pergunta é assim, 17 anos fazendo esse personagem, quando você teve essas ideias, seria esse último filme. Eu queria saber se você gostou do último suspiro que o Logan dá na história, porque para mim pareceu o último suspiro de uma coisa que ele perdeu, de uma coisa que ele nunca teve e de que ele nunca vai ter. Então é um final, eu não sei quanto é o resto do pessoal aqui, mas me provocou lágrimas e faz muito tempo que eu não assisto um super-herói que me causa isso. Então, parabéns.
Obrigado. I cried at a few places in the movie. Sometimes just the scene of me carrying Charles Xavier up the stairs, somehow that got me, you know. I love that scene as it was written in the end, because it is, I find it moving, hopefully people do too, but not overly sentimental. I'm terrible at this, I end up giving away too much, but when he says to that young girl, don't be what they made you, that to me goes straight to your heart. That is something that every single person in this room deals with. Now, who's they? Could be parents, could be a partner, could be society. People talk about advertisements on TV. There's pressure on all of us. We feel this pressure to be something that we may not be, or we should be something else. And after living, I'm going to call it 180 years, when he says to her, don't be what they made you. Be yourself. And then I'm not going to say the other line because I absolutely love it, but I feel, and I don't want to spoil it for people, but to me, what I love about that is the one thing he has never felt in his life, peace, he feels. It actually makes me a little emotional thinking about it now, because that, and actually, I don't know if it was Rogerio, I can't remember who was, I can't remember, but I felt quite peaceful watching this movie as an actor who's played it for 17 years.
Falando nisso, tem uma pergunta aqui também da internet, da Letícia Jordão, e ela pergunta: tem interpretado o Wolverine 17 anos, tem interpretado o Logan todo esse tempo, o que você faria diferente voltando para o primeiro X-Men?
That's easy. When I first got cast in X-Men, I was on stage doing curling in Oklahoma. I would not go for that first test with a perm in my hair. That was a mistake. I also thought that you could get in shape. Like I worked at a gym when I was 20 for 4 years, and I never lifted a weight. I used to make fun of those guys lifting weights. So to me, these guys just stare at themselves in the mirror for 2 or 3 hours a day. I thought it was ridiculous. So when they said, oh, you got to get into shape, I was like, yeah, 3 weeks, maybe 4, no problem. Man, there are some scenes in that first movie, if you want to, I am really not in shape. I don't care how old you are. Guys, girls, it takes longer than 3 or 4 weeks to get the Wolverine body, let me tell you. All of us. If all of us can go back to high school, we would do it completely differently. But actually, that's the beauty of life. Every single X-Men or Wolverine movie cameo, I gave 110%. I really did. And yes, I would do it differently. But if I got it all right, I wouldn't have made this movie either. Because I had a passion inside me for this movie that, all right, this is it. And I am never, ever going to go to sleep again one more night in my life without thinking, I did it. That's the movie we wanted to make. But 5 years ago, I probably couldn't have made this movie. Thanks, Letitia. I'm looking at a camera, so I'm going to interview there.
Bom, última pergunta.
I always give long answers. There's probably numbers with a 23 on there out there. And what are we? Number 7? I'm sorry.
Olá, meu nome é Diogo, eu sou do Mata Gigante. E durante toda a franquia do X-Men, você foi referência de brutalidade e selvageria. E eu queria saber como você lidou ao chegar no seu último filme como Wolverine e ser desbancado por uma criança. E como foi a sua relação com ela no set? Se foi bacana?
Have you got kids? You go to, so you understand being defeated by a child every single day. Isn't it unbelievable how mad you can get? Sometimes I have to lock myself in my room. I'm like, why, Dad? Just because, you know. No. Once you become a parent, that's when you understand humility. Some people say never work with kids or animals. I've never felt that. Kids to me are just the natural actors. They make it so simple. But when I saw the scripts for the first time, or actually just a synopsis for the script, I said, gee, I love this idea of this young girl. But without giving too much away, she doesn't speak for a long time in the movie. And yet, in many ways, she's the heart of the movie. I said, how on earth are we going to, how are we going to find someone? How are we going to do that? And Jim found this girl, Daphne King, who is an absolute rock star. I mean, I'm so moved by what she did. She is an incredible young actress with beautiful parents, Maria and Will, who are both theatre actors and film actors, and she did an incredible job. And yeah, she can kick my ass any day, basically.
Bom, infelizmente, chegamos ao final. Queria agradecer a todos. Obrigado, Hugh, por ter mais uma vez vindo aqui apresentar o filme, conversar conosco. Foi uma honra. Muito obrigado.
Obrigado.